Good afternoon. My name is Hunter Oswald, and I'm a student outreach fellow with the Institute. Mikayla Covington is the Director of International Operations at Promise of Life Network, a medical pregnancy network with physical offices that serve 5 counties in western PA. Mikayla earned her Bachelor of Arts in Communications from Geneva College and her Master of Arts in Communication from Duquesne University. She is in her final year of doctoral studies at Duquesne, where she is earning a PhD in rhetoric. Mikayla also serves as an adjudicated professor in the Department of Communication and Rhetorical Studies at Duquesne. You may read her full bio in the conference program. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Mikayla Covington.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. It's a real blessing to be here. Like Hunter so kindly introduced, my name is Mikayla. I'm the Director of International Operations at Promise of Life Network. We are the nonprofit organization that runs Alpha Omega Center. So if you're local, you might have heard that name thrown around for our medical pregnancy offices. We have 5 offices now. We just recently opened up our 5th office, but we have an office in Newcastle, Slippery Rock. There's one in the middle of nowhere called Sandy Lake, if you're familiar. I know. We might be the only thing in Sandy Lake, but we are there. And we have an office in Butler, and we just opened an office in Mercer, Pennsylvania. I want to explain a little bit about what we do. I know that the topic of this year's conference is being pro-life and post-Roe America, and you've heard a lot about crisis pregnancy centers or medical pregnancy offices. There are a couple of names, and we're fine with any of them, to be honest. But we have a couple of different services that we offer. We offer kind of the standard crisis pregnancy center services like pregnancy tests and ultrasounds. Our clinic also does STD testing. We recently started Well Women exams, so we are able to provide those to women that just started this year. We have an international helpline. We also have parenting education. So we have an office called New Beginnings, and that is providing material support to families who have chosen life, who have little kids, and they need help with things like diapers, formula, baby clothes. We also provide parenting classes to them to go over things like nutritional needs for infants, how to discipline children, different methods, things like that. We, again, offer material help. We also have an abstinence education department called Healthy Relationships Today. People have often asked, okay, abstinence education, how do you guys get into public schools? And the answer is, well, we live in Pennsylvania. And believe it or not, Pennsylvania actually has a law that is still on the books that abstinence education is required to be taught in our public school systems. I know. No one listens to it, but it's on the books. And so a lot of public school teachers say, we don't want to teach abstinence education. And we say, that's fine. We will come and teach it for you for free. So you don't have to do it. Just leave it to us. And so we call her the HRT coordinator, the Healthy Relationship Today coordinator. Her name is Lydia. And Lydia gets to go into about 35 different school districts here in Western Pennsylvania, including the Grove City Area School District. And she gets to speak anywhere from 3 to 5 days a semester with health classes and family consumer science classes about the importance of abstinence, as well as teaching our middle school and high school students the importance of healthy relationships. We also offer post-abortive support, counseling for women who have already experienced an abortion, as well as miscarriage support. And we do some pro-life advocacy within the legal realm that we're allowed to. We have 6 divisions. Alpha Omega Center is what we refer to as our medical clinics. So our physical offices are all labeled as Alpha Omega Center. The reason we do this is to protect our clients, because we do dabble in some pro-life advocacy work politically, and we want to make sure that our medical clients are safe and that their information is safe. So as a result, Alpha Omega Center specifically refers to the medical facilities. We have New Beginnings. That's the parenting program that we talked about. Step Into Hope is our miscarriage support group, as well as our post-abortive healing. Healthy Relationships Today, that's the abstinence education program I talked about. We have Sarah M. Bowen. That is the name of our executive director, and she is appalled that the board decided to name an entire division after her. She does not like it, and she wanted me to reiterate that that was not her idea. But we were able to publish a couple of years ago, right before the pandemic, we were able to publish a curriculum called Courageously Pro-Life that specifically is addressed to churches and Sunday school groups that talks about being pro-life from womb to tomb. Because we do think that being pro-life is more than just, hey, I donated some diapers to the local pregnancy center. That's great. Please donate diapers. We're actually running low. But we're always running low. It's like they're disposable or something. But we believe that we need to have a culture of life. And when I was sitting at lunch, some people were talking about how that seems to be a theme that's kind of come up naturally over the course of the last 2 days, is the culture. And we live in a culture of death right now. And we believe that we need to have a culture of life, and that goes beyond just your local pregnancy center. We believe that the church has a responsibility that we, quite frankly, have neglected for years. And so that book specifically addresses that and talks about different pro-life issues, including abortion and eugenics and euthanasia and everything that comes with living in a culture of death. And then there's at-home abortion facts. I'm the director of international operations, so this is my department that I get to run. I will share in a little bit about the specifics of that department, but we are dealing with a crisis involving at-home abortions and the abortion pills here in the United States. There's been some really good news this week that's come out of Texas regarding the abortion pills and mifepristone specifically. But that was a concern we had back in 2019, and now we have an entire department that's based on it. But I want to give some statistics just because we are local and we do service Grove City. Last year, we were able to save 44 local lives from abortion. Thank you. These are local women in our communities who came into our office physically for pregnancy tests, for ultrasounds, who were determined to have abortions and changed their minds. We do believe that getting an ultrasound, we know scientifically that getting an ultrasound allows for a woman to see her baby, but more importantly, to hear that baby's heartbeat and recognize that it is a person that we are dealing with here and they choose life. So we are very, very grateful for that. The parenting department, New Beginnings, served 146 families in 2022. That is almost double what we used to serve. The pandemic really changed things for us when it came to the parenting department, because all of a sudden there were families who weren't in need then who suddenly became very much so in need because of COVID-19. And when other pregnancy centers were closing their doors, those clients came to our pregnancy center and we said, don't worry, we've got you. Even if we didn't have any diapers, we figured it out. And so now we serve 146. And so that resulted in almost 2,000 parenting appointments. So the offices are very busy. If you ever happen to stop in and say hello, which you are more than welcome to do if you are local, you will notice that there are often tiny little children running around, and it is a joy. The abstinence program got to speak to over 1,000 students in the last school year, which is huge because that department took a really big hit during the pandemic. Before I was the director of international operations, I was actually the HRT coordinator, and so I was the person who got displaced out of a job when the school system shut down, but it ended up being a huge blessing for our international department, and we are very excited for the work that our current HRT coordinator is doing. Her name is Lydia. And so she was able to get back into the schools and speak to over 1,000 students about the importance of sexual integrity and what it means to have healthy relationships. So I said that we had 5 locations, which is true, but we also serve clients that are outside the 5 counties that we have physical locations here in Western Pennsylvania. So that at-home abortion fact issue that I was talking about, back in 2019, we built a website called athomeabortionfacts.com. I know, incredibly straightforward title, very creative, but it works. And when we launched that website, we did what any marketing savvy people would do, and we made a corresponding Facebook page purely so that no one else would steal my super creative title of at-home abortion facts, because, people just aren't creative these days. And so when we made that Facebook page, we honestly didn't intend on doing anything with it. I really just wanted to save the name and that's it. But the day that Facebook page went live, which there was literally nothing on it, it's just the most ugly Facebook page that just said at-home abortion facts. A client in South Africa messaged us and said, I know, right? So fun. And said, oh, I want to do an abortion at home. Help me. And our poor social media person was like, that is the exact opposite of this Facebook page, which you wouldn't know because we haven't put anything on it. Okay, and so we're trying to figure out what to do. We're Googling pregnancy centers in South Africa. We're on the phone with Heartbeat International, which is a big pregnancy help organization. Hey, do you know people in South Africa? And thankfully, Heartbeat International did know people in South Africa. And so we were able to connect that client with a pregnancy center in the town that she lived in South Africa, from Western Pennsylvania, middle of nowhere. It's Sandy Lake, guys, come on. And since that day, we talked to, in 2022, we talked to 5,896 clients last year on that international chat line, which makes for a total of nearly 18,000 clients that we have served since that random day in 2019. And these clients are from 70 different countries. Some of these countries are countries that I can't even tell you because they have such high security risks. A lot of those countries are located in the Middle East and are closed to Christianity. Every client that comes on our chat line hears the gospel, without exception. We have noticed that we've got about an 85% rate of women who are choosing life on our chat line. That makes for a lot of babies. It is a very, very rewarding job. Here are a couple of messages, kind of examples of the first thing that we get on the chat line. So people often ask, how does this chat line work? What does that even mean? So this is run through a social media website that I don't want to name specifically because I don't want them to shut us down. But I do regularly joke that Mark Zuckerberg is my employee of the month every month. So you can piece it together. But these are actual examples of messages that we've received on the chat line this week. So we've got 1 to 2 months preg. How can I get help? Pretty straightforward. And I appreciate the fact they let us know pretty early on how far along they thought they were. I want to know how I can abort pregnancy at home. That's a pretty standard one. That's what these women are looking for. I'm pregnant and want to do abortion. A little bit vague, but thank you for letting me know. And then there's the last one, which this happens all of the time. We serve 70 different countries. Not all of them speak English. And so it's really fun to just figure out what language even is this. So it turns out that this was Zulu, which is largely spoken in South Africa, which is where this client ended up being from. And from the best that I and Google Translate could figure out, she's 5 months pregnant, she wants an abortion, and she is, quote, very stressed up about it. Stressed up, I know, it's so fun. So these are the things that these women are looking for when they contact us on our chat line. And these are some of the PG things that they're looking for on our chat line. It is not uncommon to get women who are 8 months along asking for abortion. In fact, that's a daily occurrence on our chat line. It is also not common, or not uncommon rather, for us to get women who have already attempted to do an abortion and are now suffering the consequences of that, and they are asking us, what do I do? This could be, I just took pills and nothing's happened. Oftentimes this is, I just took pills and I'm bleeding very, very heavily and I don't know what to do. And unfortunately, on more than one occasion, this is, I took pills and I still feel something moving inside of me. What do I do? These are the things that we've been dealing with on the chat line since the end of 2019. And we often, and I do mean often, especially early on, ask God, why us? I know, right? Not in like a bad way, but just, we don't understand. This is Western Pennsylvania. We are a ragtag bunch of misfits trying to run this pregnancy center. There's a pandemic going on, and I don't know anything about Africa, right? I grew up in Asia, wrong continent. Why us? And then June of 2022 happened, and we got the answer to why. Because this chat line not only is saving babies internationally, right, which we're super grateful for, but it has equipped us to deal with post-Roe America in a couple of different ways. It's provided an opportunity to interact with clients online, which is something we kind of needed to learn how to do anyway. It's 2023. People are online now. And oftentimes the pregnancy help organizations as a whole, we tend to be a couple of years behind when it comes to technology. So this was good practice for us. Also came very in handy during the pandemic when we were limiting how many clients we could have physically in the office. We never closed our office doors. We were deemed an essential workplace by Governor Wolf, so we were allowed to stay open, but we were trying to limit how many people we had in the office at once. So even though the chat line was only running for a couple of months before the thick of the pandemic started, we were able to get some practice in, and it kind of helped that transition phase because, well, we were talking to clients online already. It also showcased different DIY abortion methods. We in the United States are very accustomed to dealing with what we refer to as the traditionally post-abortive woman. We are used to hearing about women going to Planned Parenthood and having a DNC, right, having a surgical abortion. And sometimes we're used to them going into the clinic and getting pills and then being sent home and finishing the abortion at home. But in Africa and in other parts of the world, we're learning about all the different ways that people induce abortions. A lot of these are manual methods. I'm not going to get into the details of that, but clothes hangers. There's something called JIC, which for a long time we couldn't figure out what that was, and Google Translate wasn't helpful. But I actually had the opportunity to travel to Africa last summer, and I spent some time in remote Uganda and Kenya, and I found JIC in the store. It's household cleaner. And so now I know what my clients on the chat line are swallowing. I know, I'm so sorry to ruin your lunch there, but I'm going to kick my shoes off. Just deal with it. It's nonprofit. Like, I wear Crocs at work. It's fine. So that's JIC, right? And herbal supplements, lemongrass tea. I've heard everything from unripe papaya, pineapple, boiled aspirin, and Coca-Cola. I haven't figured that one out, but that's really popular as well. I had someone drink vinegar and baking soda. Quote, she was going to bubble the baby out. It didn't work. What else? Someone boiled steel wool and drank that. Some of them make sense, some of them don't. But we're learning all of the different methods. And we thought, wow, Africa is so wild. And it is. Had a great trip to Africa, but it is very strange. But then we started hearing in the United States of people turning to herbal supplements, especially after the Dobbs decision dropped, because they were panicking. And now there's even a book called Grow Your Own Abortion that talks about all of the different plants that you can grow in your backyard to induce abortion with. So this is not just something that's being handled in remote parts of Uganda. This is in the United States too. And so it gave us the opportunity to kind of get some insight into what's going on. It also gave our staff experience to deal with immediately post-abortive clients. I talked about the traditionally post-abortive client and what we're kind of used to dealing with. Oftentimes when we have post-abortive counseling in our center, we're dealing with people who had abortions years ago. And it's been years that they've kind of been removed from this trauma. Still traumatizing, right? They still have a lot to work through. We're not trying to undermine the work that needs to be done there. But there is something very different dealing with a woman who is immediately post-abortive. Oftentimes the clients on our chat line, if they are post-abortive, are still experiencing symptoms. They're still bleeding. They are actively expelling fetal remains, right? There's a lot going on. It is an immediate medical crisis, first and foremost. There's also something to be said for having an abortion that is performed by an abortionist and a woman becoming her own abortionist by taking pills. And we notice there's a difference in our clients who obtained an abortion from an abortion provider versus doing it themselves. That takes a different mental toll on you. And the way that we speak with those clients does need to be a little bit different because their experience has been really, really different. And so it's given our staff the ability to kind of get used to dealing with that kind of a situation because, quite frankly, it's something that a lot of pregnancy centers aren't equipped to deal with. We're used to people coming for post-abortive counseling. We're very comfortable with post-abortive counseling, but usually it's at the very least a couple of months out, not currently actively happening. It also gives our staff experience working with failed abortions. I mentioned that it's a pretty much daily occurrence for women to come on the chat line looking for abortions 6, 7, 8 months. And when this happens, right, the first thing we tell them is, listen, if you go through with this, because most of the time they're trying to take JIC or boiled aspirin, and we say there's a very high chance that you could give birth to a live baby. And you need to think about this because, we know the laws of South Africa, of Kenya, of Uganda, of all these different countries. And you are going to be legally liable for a life. So you need to recognize that what you are doing is not necessarily an abortion. You're just inducing labor early. Unfortunately, we also have had to deal with the ramifications of that. Sometimes that changes their mind, and they're like, well, I'm going to have to give birth anyway, so I might as well let the baby incubate all the way up to 9 months. And other times it doesn't change their mind, and they try to do it anyway, and now we have a live baby on our hands. And so it's given our staff the opportunity to know what to do in those kinds of situations, to counsel these women who are in these situations, to try to seek the right help that is needed in these situations. Our local offices have not had to deal with this yet, but other pregnancy centers that we are friends with have. And sometimes these babies are born alive and sometimes they are not. Sometimes they are born alive for a couple of minutes. And so handling those kinds of situations is something that pregnancy centers have had to learn how to deal with. We recognize that we are very blessed with 18,000 something Africans and other countries as well. But South Africa and Kenya are kind of our big countries for clients on the chat line. And we recognize that not every pregnancy center has been blessed with such a gift. And so we want to spread the love. And I know, right? We're like, please help. And we want other people to be able to gain the experience that we have. And so we want to do our best to help equip other pregnancy centers for what we do believe is on the horizon post-Roe. And so the ways that we've been able to do this is we provide digital resources for other organizations. So we've been able to push out pamphlets, flyers, things to put in client packets that address the at-home abortion situation, since we can speak into it a little bit more than perhaps other pregnancy centers can. And we do provide those to other pregnancy centers for them to use. We're happy to put their logo on it, so it's not even our logo, it's their pregnancy center's logo. Here's the information. We also provide what we've called AHAF, At-Home Abortion Fact Training, because I ran out of creative titles by this point. And so we actually do a couple of hours worth of a seminar talking about the at-home abortion situation in the United States, the difference between a DIY abortion and a chemical abortion, and a medical abortion, right? There's all of these different terminologies that get thrown around, and the media really likes to take those terminologies and run with them and make them mean things that they don't. So we provide training to give clarity to pregnancy help workers, as well as to share the way that we have handled some of these situations that have come up on the chat line, like what to do when a client tries an abortion at 7 months. Who to contact when there's a live baby involved after a failed abortion. And so we offer that training to other organizations. We also refer all of these clients on the chat line to pregnancy centers in their countries. So especially South Africa and Kenya have very strong pregnancy help networks, which we are so grateful for. And so we've been able to partner with them. And anytime a client from South Africa comes on, I'm like, hey, like here's who you need to talk to. And they get a pregnancy center referral in their home country. Some countries don't have pregnancy help networks, especially some of those Middle Eastern countries that I can't name. Turns out there's not a thriving pregnancy help network in some of those countries. And in that case, we try to connect them with a local church or with a missionary or with literally any Christian that we know who might live in that country, so that at the very least they can have a Christian contact who is going to share the pro-life message with them. And we know that their local church would be more than happy to provide assistance. This also gives us the opportunity to push ads in countries that have their marketing efforts restricted. Some examples of this would be India. We've pushed ads to India. So what we'll do, our Facebook page is on the United States servers, for lack of a better term. And so we have a little bit of freedom regarding ads that we can run and marketing that we can do. Even though they are constantly trying to restrict that, we still have more freedom than countries like India. And so what we can do is we'll run an ad on our Facebook page that's geared to Indian clients, and it'll generate Indian clients on our international chat line, and then we refer those clients to the pregnancy centers in India. So if a pregnancy center in a specific country is having a hard time getting clients because of their marketing, we're able to run targeted ads to help them out. And so we've done that for India. We do that on a daily basis for South Africa and for Kenya. We also did that for the Ukraine right before the war started out. And so this is something that we're able to help with on an international basis. And we also are trying to help other countries set up their own chat lines. India is another example of that. We actually have an Indian chat line that we kind of helped the Pregnancy Help Network of India set up, and we're trying to show them how we do it. It's very difficult because ours kind of started by accident, so it's not like we were super smart and had like this grand plan and we're like, well, if you just follow this step and this step, it'll work, because we don't really know what we're doing. But we're trying to help India figure out how to replicate it. And same goes for Ukraine. That's an effort that'll continue on once things settle down a little bit. Back to the At-Home Abortion Fact website. So this website was intended for a U.S. audience, right, because we were concerned about abortion pills in the United States. And then the international chat line took off, and while we do see some clients from the United States on that chat line, they are not super common. Every couple of weeks we might get a couple. It has increased slightly since the Dobbs ruling. And we anticipate that it'll continue to increase depending on the political environment, but it's largely intended towards an international audience. That being said, our website, we just finished redoing, and it just launched last Tuesday, to gear towards the United States audience. The hope and the dream is to eventually have a chat line that is dedicated to U.S. clients so that they don't intermingle with all of our African and Middle Eastern clients. But if you scan the QR code, it should take you directly to the website. I think that's how that works. That's how I've been told, so you can try it. I don't know. I'm not technologically savvy, but it was just updated. Please feel free to use it as a resource to share if you work for a pregnancy help network. You're more than welcome to list our website as a resource. I'm really hoping it's working, because if you haven't heard the news out of Texas, the abortion pill is now illegal to use after 7 weeks gestation, which is different. It used to be 12 weeks. And also it's now illegal to mail them, which is really, really huge. But we did have to add that as an update to the website, even though I had literally just told the web developer, like, no, we're not going to have any updates. And then 24 hours later, Texas, I guess that's the sentence, 24 hours later, Texas. So I'm hoping that it's running, because it has had some maintenance in the last couple of hours to get that breaking news. Like, please don't buy abortion pills online, it's illegal. But that's where we're at. So we're really hoping that this resource takes off, and we're very grateful that the Chatline has given us the opportunity to understand what could be on the horizon for the United States and for pregnancy help organizations as we navigate what a post-Roe America looks like, especially on the front lines of pregnancy help. Here are some ways that you can help. But volunteer on the Chatline. If this sounds like your dream, and I know that some people do dream of things like this, you can volunteer because our Chatline is entirely run by volunteers. So I'm a staff member, but the day-to-day running of the Chatline is done by volunteers. These are women who have a heart for pro-life ministry and who are willing to be on the front lines and to have conversations with clients who are experiencing, quite frankly, situations that you and I would never even think of. The way it works is we have a schedule. They can sign up for shifts on an hourly basis. We have some women who do 1 hour a week, and I am so grateful for those women who do that 1 hour a week. We have some people who do a couple of hours every day. It's very flexible. It's been a great way for especially like stay-at-home moms to volunteer, and it was super helpful during the pandemic because we couldn't have a lot of volunteers in the office. You could do this from your phone or your laptop or your iPad. And so please, if you're interested, come talk to me. I'd be happy to have you as a volunteer. We have an application process and an interview process because we do screen all of our volunteers at Promise of Life Network. But if you're interested, please consider volunteering on the Chatline because we need help. You can volunteer or financially support your local pregnancy center. We always encourage you to contact your local pregnancy center. If you are from the Grove City area, hi, we're your local pregnancy center. But if you're not from Grove City, if you're from Pittsburgh, there are other pregnancy centers down there. But please consider volunteering and financially supporting your local pregnancy center because they are going to need it. Obviously pray. I need to start listing that one first because it's not like third choice. It's not, well, if you don't want to volunteer and if you don't have money, at least you could pray. You should pray first, and you should pray continuously. But specifically, pray that your pregnancy centers will have the resources they need to serve the clients they need. Also pray for clients that are coming into your local pregnancy center because they are dealing with women who are intending to have abortions. And that is a huge weight on the staff and volunteers at your local pregnancy center, trust me. So please pray for their staff, but also pray for the clients that they're seeing. And then pray for protection against threats. People have asked, hey, like, how are things post-Roe regarding safety? Promise of Life Network has been very blessed. We have received very few threats since the Dobbs decision. We have received a couple, but they weren't very credible. Some college students did write some nasty things on our sidewalk in chalk, so that was great, but they weren't Grove City college students, so you guys would never. So, I mean, we're very blessed in that regard, but other pregnancy centers have not been so lucky. And I've had friends who their pregnancy centers had rocks thrown through windows. Arson has become an increasingly big problem. So please continue to pray for protection for pregnancy help workers because there is now a safety concern after the Dobbs decision and violence broke out. And then also get involved in state level lobbying, right? Just because Roe v. Wade was overturned, huge blessing, we're so grateful, but now it goes back to the states. And if you're a Pennsylvania resident, you know that nothing really changed here in Pennsylvania. Abortion is still legal up until 20 weeks. So we need to get involved at the state level now. Go to Harrisburg. I highly recommend getting involved with the Pennsylvania Family Institute. They are so great at helping people learn how to lobby and the talking points that you should be talking to, the people you need to be talking to. They're an incredible resource, and we've been very happy to partner with them in the past, especially bills revolving around the abstinence education in our public schools. That's something that they're very passionate about as well. So please get involved on state level lobbying. Support your local pregnancy centers, volunteer on our Chatline if that's something you're interested in doing, but get involved because we can't do this without you. And on that note, I will stop talking and I will find where I've kicked my shoes off and I will answer any questions you guys might have.
questions. It's on, I think. Okay.
Most of the centers that I have worked with, their staff and volunteers are stretched to the limit. I'm wondering, did you have to add staff when you added this international dimension? And then part 2, part 3 is how did you train them, and then as your director and board meets, how do they decide allocating resources, money, time to what you're doing locally versus internationally?
Sure. So we did have to add staff. We actually only did that in the last year and a half. So initially, I was the HRT coordinator, and for several months I was doing the HRT coordinator work, going into the schools and running the Chatline, which was a great time of life that I'm very grateful is over. So we did, I know. So we did end up hiring a replacement HRT coordinator. Her name is Lydia. She's so much better at it than I ever could hope to be anyway. And she's younger than I am, so she's still like cool and trendy. I aged out. The high schoolers thought I was lame. But Lydia's still cool. And so I moved over full-time into the international department, and we call her the Chatline coordinator. Her name is Nicole, and she's a full-time employee who kind of manages the day-to-day running of this. So we did have to add staff. Nicole and I are the only 2 staff members dedicated to the international department. Everyone else still has local responsibilities that they do. And when it comes to allocating funds, we are still the local pregnancy center. And that is still where a huge part of our focus is. And as a result, a huge part of our funding goes to. So we don't want to lose sight of our community here in the United States, and specifically here in Western Pennsylvania.
People manning the chat lines, volunteers mostly?
Yes. So the people who are actively chatting on the chat line, most of them are volunteers. Sometimes we'll have a paid staff member who might do an hour or 2, like if there's no client scheduled to be seen in the office, they might hop on to help. Sometimes it gets really busy and we need more than one person on the chat line, in which case they might jump on. But largely the chat line is being manned daily by volunteers.
How good it is to hear what positive work you people are doing. And thank you very much. I'd be interested to know, what have you found to be the most effective encouragement to people that are considering abortion, to encourage them not to go through with it, to bring a new human being into the world?
Sure. So on the chat line specifically, something we run into is largely an education problem. It's amazing to hear some of the things that they've been told or not told that we take for granted here in the United States. My personal favorite is someone will come on the chat line and tell me that they're 12 hours pregnant. So I don't, go figure that one out. And it turns out they're never 12 hours pregnant. They're always 6 months pregnant. So just trying to figure out how far along they are can be a challenge. But something that we have found to be incredibly helpful is we actually got permission from Answers in Genesis. So the people who run, like Kinham, the people who run the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter over in Kentucky, their Creation Museum has a display called Fearfully and Wonderfully Made. And they have these really neat models of different gestational ages in the womb. And they're so incredibly detailed and lifelike. And we saw them one time and we were like, hey, could we get pictures of these models to send to clients in South Africa? And Ken Ham, who was the person I asked that question to directly, was like, I guess. And put me in contact with somebody over at Answers in Genesis. And they actually gave us the digital versions of those files. And so our chat line staff and volunteers actually have the opportunity to share these fetal model images with clients. So if I find out that a client is 14 weeks pregnant, I have a fetal model image of what a 14-week pregnancy looks like. And I'll say, hey, would you be interested in seeing this picture? We always ask permission first, just to kind of get an idea of what's going on inside your body. And that has really changed a lot of their lives because they had no idea. And I have quote after quote after quote, and I do keep track of it because I hope someday Answers in Genesis will give me a grant. And so I know, a person can dream. And so I keep track of it. And I had no idea that was a baby. is very common. I had no idea. Some of them say, wow, that's a human being. And so we found that them seeing those fetal model images has been probably the biggest source of encouragement, specifically on the chat line, because I can't give them an ultrasound via a social media website. So that's the best I can do.
I just want to encourage anybody that is in the local area to please volunteer, and if you're a man, you can do it too.
Yep.
So in your experience with talking with people from other countries and cultures, what do you see as the difference to our culture? So we know our culture. Can you explain the cultures and the laws and the countries that you see overseas, and how that basically, are those other countries also a culture of death?
Sure. So a lot of those countries are not a culture of death. A lot of those countries, abortion is actually outlawed altogether. So I think that's partly why we're seeing these DIY methods, because we know that outlawing abortion is not going to stop it from happening, right? Because it's a heart issue that we're dealing with at that point, not a law issue. But their cultures are very much so cultures of life. We are finding that adoption is not as celebrated in other countries as it can be here in the States. I think we don't celebrate it enough here in the States either. But in a lot of countries, it's very much so frowned upon. It's considered abandoning your baby. And so it's not necessarily an option that they're willing to consider. So for a lot of our clients here in the States, we could talk about your options. Okay, you've got abortion, you have adoption, you can parent the baby. But for these international clients, it's kind of life or death. It's either I have to parent this baby or I have an abortion, and there's no other alternatives. And so in that regard, it's been very tricky to navigate, just because adoption looks so different in other countries, or just doesn't exist. And if you think the United States has a messed up foster care or adoption system, you should hear about some other country systems. So I would say that that's probably the largest cultural differences that we've seen, but they're largely life-oriented, especially in Africa. So it's really a matter of the situation that they're in that's driving them to do this. I think in the States, a lot of times we have women who want abortions because it was unplanned, and that's kind of it. Like, they might be financially stable, they might have all of these resources available to them, and it's simply, I don't want it. And that's not to say that that doesn't happen on the chat line either, but we're dealing with rape victims, we're dealing with incest, we're dealing with human trafficking, which is something that we see a lot on the chat line. And so the situations are just much more dire, I think, than what we're kind of used to seeing in the offices in the States.
Just a quick question. I may have missed it. Do you offer training to anyone who would like to volunteer from out of your area to be on the international chat line? How long does it take? How does it go?
Sure. So we do have training. God bless the volunteers who were kind of like the first ones, because they didn't get any training. We said, hi, here's the chat line, praying for you, and just pushed them on in there. So they got to learn trial by fire. Nowadays, the volunteers, we actually just finished developing our training program. So we've got videos. We have a manual that they read through. That kind of answers some of the main questions a person might have about volunteering on the chat line, as well as kind of like the day-to-day expectation. And then we put them on the chat line to observe. So they're not actively chatting, they're just watching as other people chat. And then we do have every day, there's a supervisor on duty. So it's either myself, Nicole, our chatline coordinator, or our executive director, Sarah. And so if there's ever a problem, if a volunteer is not sure what to do, they contact the supervisor on duty, and we're there to help. And so they will shadow a supervisor for a couple of days, a couple of weeks. It kind of depends on how comfortable that particular volunteer is feeling. And then eventually we'll let them take a couple of conversations while a supervisor is there with them, virtually. We'll watch and help them take their conversations of their own. And eventually they start to spread their wings and fly. And we chuck them onto the chat line with the rest of the volunteers and say, praying for you. So, but they do have support. Our supervisors are available, honestly, 24/7. Sure. You could contact me and I'd be happy to share it with you. Yes, so you don't have to be local because all of this is online. So actually, our Chatline coordinator doesn't even live in Pennsylvania. She lives in a different state. I've never even met her in person. I know, it's wild. So you could chat from anywhere. In fact, we would love it if you happen to be in a different time zone other than Eastern time zone. That would be great. But we've had people from Australia be on our chat line for a little bit, South Africa. So it's not restricted to just local people. Honestly, if you have internet access or I suppose an incredibly healthy data plan on your phone, you could work on the chat line. You don't have to be from Western PA.
Thank you for the work you're doing. It's so important. Do you ever connect people who wish to adopt with some of these mothers who have decided to have their child but don't want to parent the child?
Sure. So we can't connect people specifically with clients on the chat line. There are a lot of legal reasons why we can't do that, and also just kind of like the logistics of that. So if you're looking to adopt, I can't just be like, hey, there's a woman in Africa who chose life and wants to give her baby up. We don't provide that. That being said, we do have resources for women who come on the chat line and who do want to adopt, as in they've chosen adoption instead of abortion. We are able to refer them to resources to put their baby up for adoption, but we don't provide referrals to specific clients if you're interested in adopting a baby from the chat line.
Let's give Mikayla another round of applause.